We all hear about the minimum wage, and we think we have a pretty good handle on it. But what is it actually worth? It turns out the number you see on paper, well, it barely scratches the surface. Today, we're going to peel back the layers and look at the hidden costs that have totally changed the game and what it really means for millions of workers out there.
All right, let's just jump right in with a super simple question. I mean, we all know the answer is a big no, right? $1 in your wallet today buys way, way less than it did back in the 80s. That's inflation, and it's the absolute starting point for understanding the real story of wages in America.
So to really get a grip on this, we're going to zero in on two specific years, 1986 and right now. That's a 40-year gap. And yeah, if you just look at the raw numbers, it seems like wages have gone up. But like we're about to find out, the numbers on a paycheck can be seriously deceiving.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about inflation. It's kind of like this invisible force that silently changes the value of every single dollar we make. It's the first clue to figuring out what a paycheck from back then was actually worth.
So rewind to 1986. The federal minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. I know, that sounds ridiculously low today. But on its own, that number doesn't really tell us anything.
The real question is, what could you actually buy with that money? To figure that out, we've got to do a little translation. We have to convert that 1986 wage into today's dollars. And when you do that, wow, the picture completely changes.
And boom, here it is, our first big reveal. When you adjust for all that inflation, that $3.35 from 1986 had the exact same buying power as $9.93 today. That's right, almost $10 an hour. Keep that number in your head.
Now, let's fast forward to today. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. And get this, it's been stuck at that exact number since 2009. That's the longest the wage has ever gone without a bump since it was first created.
So when you put them side by side like this, it's just crystal clear, isn't it? On the left, you've got the real buying power of the 1986 wage, that $9.93. And on the right, today's wage, it's $7.25. It means a worker back then could buy a lot more with 1 hour of their time than a worker can today. So let's put a hard number on that difference. It's a 27% drop in real buying power. Just let that sink in for a second. Even though the number on the paycheck went up, the actual value of the money, what you can do with it, has fallen by over a quarter. Okay, so that's the story we usually hear, right? Wages just haven't kept up with inflation. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that 27% drop doesn't even come close to showing the real problem? What if there's a whole bunch of hidden costs that we're not even thinking about? See, that inflation calculation, it mostly looks at things that have been around forever. Stuff like housing, food, cars. What it doesn't really account for are the brand new expenses that are basically mandatory if you want to function in modern society. Our source material calls this the tech tax. Now hold on, this isn't an official government tax. Think of it more like a fee you have to pay just to exist in the 21st century. It's the money for all the technology you need to apply for a job, for your kids to do their homework, or heck, just to stay in touch with your family. So what exactly are we talking about here? Well, think about your own budget, your cell phone bill, your home internet. And these days, you can probably add streaming services, cloud storage for all your photos, software subscriptions. None of this was a line item on a budget in 1986. Today, they're totally unavoidable. So what's the damage? Well, according to the source material, these new essentials can add up to around $700 a month for a typical household. Now, think about a full-time minimum wage worker. For them, that's like watching $4.38 of their hourly wage vanish. Just gone before they even think about rent or food. All right, this is it. Let's put everything together. We're going to take the current wage and factor in this new unavoidable tech tax to find out what today's minimum wage is truly worth. This is the new bottom line. The math here is really simple, but honestly, it's pretty shocking. So you start with the federal minimum wage, $7.25. Then you subtract that hourly cost of the tech tax, which was $4.38, and what's left? $2.87 an hour. That's the effective buying power.
So what does that $2.87 actually mean when you compare it back to 1986? It means a minimum wage worker today has only 29% of the buying power their counterpart had back then. It's not a 27% drop anymore. It's a fall to just 29%. That's a massive, massive decline.
So, why does this matter? Why go through all this math? Because this isn't just about spreadsheets and statistics. Understanding this real, effective wage changes everything about how we should be thinking about work, about opportunity, and about financial stability in this country.
As our source material puts it so well, this is so much bigger than just inflation. What we're really talking about here is a fundamental, structural erosion of economic dignity. The idea that a full day's work should earn you a fair living. That basic promise has been completely reshaped.
So where do we go from here? Well, the analysis points to a few big ideas. First, we have to start talking about wages based on what it actually costs to live today, not on some outdated formula. Second, we probably need to start treating things like internet access as a basic need, like electricity or water. And finally, all this has to lead to policies that actually reflect the world we live in right now.
I think this quote from the source really just says it all. Minimum wage hasn't just stagnated. It's been quietly undermined by the cost of connection. That's the whole story in a nutshell. The wage itself has been frozen, while the price of just being a part of society has skyrocketed. And that really leaves us with one big, important question to chew on. Our lives, our needs, what we consider essential, it's all completely different than it was 40 years ago. So if our idea of essential costs has changed so much, doesn't it make sense that our definition of a fair wage needs to change too?